What's up, YouTube? This is your bro, DrDroo. And DrDroo is officially 1/3 of the way towards becoming an actual doctor. As you can see, these are my college diplomas. I recently graduated. And what do college graduates do? They take the time to make you some fantastic Yu-Gi-Oh decks. Fantastic Yu-Gi-Oh decks, and that's what I'm going to do for you today. We're going to bring you a worm deck, which is actually probably what I'm going to play for Orlando. That's how good I think this deck is. I think this deck is tier 1. I think it's just as good as Hero Beat and Junk Doppel Plants and all that other good stuff. As usual, we'll thank GameTimeCC.com for making these vids possible. Good people, and they're good friends, and you should check them out if you get the chance. And yeah, let's get this deck on the road. Now, I usually start with a monster lineup with a deck, but in this case, you gotta start with the traps, because this guy is the man. This guy is your best friend, or your worst enemy, or your secret lover, or somewhere in between. But this card right here, if you don't know what it does, you should read it. I'm going to go ahead and post something on it, on what it does right there. Mostly it just, flips up your worms up. It puts them back down to recycle them. You draw cards based on what you put back down, and then you special summon a level 7 or higher worm monster, such as Worm King. Now, Worm King, as you can see by the effect, is pretty busted. He's basically a Gravekeeper's descendant for worms, and you'll have some worms that were just flipped face down by W Nebula Meteorite. So you can flip them up, get some cool flip effects, and then start bouncing opponents' cards. If you do this first turn, there's no way to stop it, because they can't warning it, they can't depression it, because they'll have just set those traps, and then you just plow those back rows away. Just rah, nah. Sorry about that. We will get back to the show. So yeah, W Nebula Meteorite. This card is what made me pick up this deck, because I think this card is overpowered. But in order to use W Nebula Meteorite, you have to protect the worms until the end phase. So for that, we play Triple D Prison. We also play a Dark Bribe to stop against Dark Hole and Giant True Nate shenanigans, because Dark Hole really hurts this deck. This is a proxy for something I don't know yet. I was playing it as a Safe Zone. I was playing it as an Alien Brain. I'll post effects for Safe Zone and Alien Brain. But yeah, this is right now it's Alien Brain, but that might be changed. Double Solemn Warning. One bottomless Trap Hole, because Hero Beat's a bit of a tough matchup. 2 Offerings to the Snake Deity, which if you don't know, is basically like an Icarus attack, and slightly worse, because you have to have face-up ones, and the targets can't leave the field, so it's a little bit tougher, but, anyways, and a proxy Icarus attack, because it's almost like Icarus attack, But yeah, playing 2 of those, a Solemn Judgment, a Mirror Force, okay? Let's go to the monsters so you know what these worms actually do. There's Worm King. I'm using 1 Worm King. A lot of people play 2. I hate drawing him. You can tribute 1 monster to summon him, and so he's a 1 tribute basically in this deck, but I don't know. It's hard to get any advantage off him when you normal summon. He has to be special summoned off Nebula, and I hate drawing him, so I only play 1. I look at him kind of like Titanial and Plant decks. I play 3 Worm X. This is like the Stratos of the deck. Because it's a +1 1800 beater. When you summon it, you send any reptile worm to the grave, and usually the one you're going to send is going to be Worm Yagen, because Worm Yagen's effect is, if Worm Yagen is in the grave, and you only control Worm X, you can special summon Worm Yagen from the graveyard. Now, even if they have something like Royal Oppression or Solemn Warning, this card, you can just activate it again, because you can special summon it from grave anytime the only card you control is Worm X, or the only monster you control is Worm X. So you special it. The problem is that once this dies, it'll get removed from play. But if it gets flipped face up, and then flipped back face down by something like W Nebula Meteorite, by something like that, then it'll reset and it'll stay in graveyard. So something to keep in mind. But yeah, Worm X, you run 3 of him, he's like the Stratos, and normally your best play is to normal summon him, to send this card to graveyard, and then special it, and then set Worm Nebula, or W Nebula Meteorite. You don't flip yet. Activate the W Nebula Meteorite. You'll end up flipping these both face down. You'll flip it up first, so you can actually protect it, because the Worm Yagen functions as a Gravekeeper's Guard. It actually bounces monsters back to the hand, face up 1. So it's a great synchro killer. And yeah, so you'll be able to bounce a monster back to their hand, and then you'll draw 2 cards, and then you'll special Worm King. And now you'll have 2 things to tribute off, to blow their board off, because this isn't once per turn, and this is any reptile you control. So you can tribute these 2 blow 2 cards, and you drew 2 cards. Pretty good. That's the favorite play of this deck. That's what the play of this deck loves. Anyway, so yeah, Worm X's. Were the Worm Y's. If you look at the Y2, if you look really closely, Red Light Evil, you can see a Worm X in the background. And same with the Worm X card. Just FYI. See that? See right where the red light is? That's a Worm Y being all slimy. Anyways, these cards are really gross looking. I don't know if you noticed. This one's got like tentacle things hanging out on the top. But, anyways, next worm up is Worm Carteros. Now this one functions as similar to a Stratos 2. This is a 4-star worm card that when it gets flipped, the flip effect says you can add a level 4 or lower worm monster from your deck to your hand. Reptile worm, excuse me. So you get to add this guy to hand. You can add this guy to hand if you think so. Or you can add another worm I run, which is Worm Lynx. Worm Lynx used to be the win condition for this deck, because this card's flip effect says during each end phase you draw a card. That includes your opponent's end phase. So if you flip it, it survives your turn and your opponent's turn at +1s. Stays out for your turn, that's a +2, +3. Basically, every time a turn ends, you're drawing extra cards. So it was really strong. It's just really hard to keep alive. And suddenly this became the win condition, so suddenly keeping worms alive was really important. But I still play 2. I might take out 1 for a Worm Apocalypse, which has a flip effect to destroy a spell or trap. It's like a Raikou sort of, but anyways, for now this is what I'm using. I'm running double Evil Dragon Ananta. This is like the Cyber Eltonin for this deck. You remove all worms you control, like and in the graveyard, and special summon it, and it gains 600 attack per. And during each end phase, you destroy a card on the field. Sometimes you'll have to destroy your own card if your opponent plays around it. But if they have a lot of sets, you can just start picking stuff off. If you play something like GKs and you Giant Trunade and then put this out on the board, suddenly they're going to be in a tough spot as to whether or not they want to play Necro Valley, because you can just blow it up during the end phase. And any sets they put on the board. So, and it functions as a game finisher. If you've got something like 8 worms in grave, he's going to come as a 4800 beat stick. He's a reptile, so you can use the offerings to the snake deity with him. So play 1 honest, because you can only play 1, and all these guys right here, all lights. All these guys are lights right here. So, you know, that's a nice little surprise for people who just don't realize these guys are about to honest their face off. Double Spirit Reaper. These are more support cards now. This card is actually really strong in this deck. It's one of my favorite cards in this deck now, because with things like offerings to the snake deity, where is it? There it is. Offerings to the Snake Deity, things like Honest, things like Ananta, and things like Worm King and Yagan, you're going to end up blowing their board or clearing monsters off their board. And so a lot of times they're going to try and either not put cards out to keep you from doing stuff, or you'll just blow stuff up during end phase of Worm King that they can't do anything about. So these guys a lot of times will poke for an extra piece of advantage. And so I really, really like these guys. And I also play 1 Gen X Ally Birdman. Gen X Ally Birdman returns a monster you control back to the hand as a cost for special summoning him, or you can just normal summon him, and he's a 3-star tuner. The real reason you use him is to recycle X, so that you can keep using this card, which is nice, because it's a really beast modey card. But the other reason is because you want to synchro to monsters such as Gen X Ally Triforce. Gen X Ally Triforce requires a Gen X tuner to summon him. But if you use a light non-tuner, then once per turn you can special a light monster from your graveyard, which is fantastic, because all these guys are... I'm sorry, you special summon it face down. And since all these guys are flip effects, that means as soon as he comes out, you take your priority, for as long as we have it, and special summon something like Worm Carteros face down. Next turn you flip summon, search your deck for whatever, and then you can special another card face down. You can special a Worm King that was killed earlier. You know, you can special, and then keep special summoning targets for him through Triforce. And he just gets a +1 every turn. He puts pressure on the opponent to do something about him. Also, being able to go into a Black Rose or a Breenac here and there is pretty handy. So, yeah, he's pretty good. Spells are pretty light on the spells. This is a heavy trap-based deck. These are proxies for Pot of Dualities. I own 1. I'll probably get more for Orlando, whatever, but if I'm going to be proxying other parts of the deck, might as well proxy these. Convert Contact. But, yeah, so those are proxies, Pot of Dualities. You run the trip Pot of Duality just to try and hit Nebula as fast as possible, and you don't do a lot of special summoning in this deck. 1 Livre de la Lune. Retournez un monstre face recto, s'il vous plaît. I also play 1 Monster Reborn, 1 Dark Hole, and 1 Giant Trunade. This card's questionable in this deck because I don't try to OTK, so I don't need to bounce that much stuff back. But against GKs and Hero Beat, they're so popular these days that ensuring yourself a successful Nebula or even a successful X is really important in this deck. So yeah, this is the deck I plan on using. It generates a ton of advantage through Links, through X, through the offerings, through the Nebula. There's a lot of drawing, there's a lot of destruction. I like that it has a lot of answers. I like that it has a power card and a draw card, but at the same time, it's got some general utility cards that will just take care of problems on the board, like this and like Yagen, wherever Yagen is. Yeah, like Yagen. I mean, since this just functions as a Synchro Buster, it's like, you know, decks like Samurais or Plants, this will give you easy outs to start a Sheen, that kind of thing. And so it has a lot of outs. It also has big beaters. It has the 1800X. It has a Nanta, and it has Worm King. So this is the Worm deck. You should really test it out. I've been on a really good tear with it. I've smashed through Karakuris. I smashed through Samurais. Samurais really struggle against this deck because you have 9 ways to search out your Gravekeeper's Guard. You pull it out with X, you pull it out with Carteros, and you just bounce Sheehan back, and they're in trouble. Also, you know, decks that Synchro usually put 2 cards out on the board. You can offer into the Snake Deity those monsters away. And so there's so many monster effects that things like Sheehan can't do anything. So yeah, tore through Samurais, splitting with Junk Doppelplants, but I'm working to try and improve that matchup. The side deck can use a lot of things like Rivalry of Warlords and stuff like that. I might consider maining Effect Valen. I also was splitting 50-50 with Hero Beat, but Hero Beat's just such a good deck. That's a tough deck to beat. I was also had a decent edge on GKs. So whenever you have an edge on some of the best decks in the format, it's a good thing. I said that about Super Solar Plants. The problem with me playing Super Solar Plants last time was just I played bad. So I'm going to try not do that for Orlando with this deck. Wish me luck. Anyways, that's it for the Worm deck. I'm going to try and get some videos out. I'd like to know from you guys what kind of videos you prefer. I've been doing a lot of deck profiles and duel videos lately. I wonder if I should go back to some good old-fashioned DrDroo comedy because you guys love my jokes. I mean, I don't know why. I don't know why you guys love my jokes. I know why you love me. I mean, that's obvious. But as for the jokes, I could go back doing some funny ones. I was thinking about doing flavor text for spells, traps, and effects monsters. You know, like I was thinking something like, whatever. I won't waste it. But let me know if you guys want to do maybe a comedy video, maybe another deck profile. I had a lot of deck ideas with Extreme Victory and stuff coming out. Or, you know, maybe some player interviews if you'd like to see something like that. Because I'm going to go to Orlando, and maybe you'd like to hear why it is that, you know, Jarrell Winston is so pro that he doesn't have to go. You know, he just got to stop. So, let me know. This is my deck profile. I hope you enjoyed it. And, as usual, this will be DrDroo signing.